After a few more days of LZs and PZs, with the LZs mostly hot, we had a night mission to pick up some important officers from Saigon. An odd one-ship night mission. We did not know it at the time, but the NVAVC were carrying on a mini Tet offensive in our area with stepped-up attacks on our patrols, fire support bases, small special forces bases, and base camps in our area. We knew things were bad for us, but they were always bad as far as I knew since arriving in Vietnam. I was surprised at not being killed or wounded in my 3 months in Vietnam. Lots of close calls, but I was still untouched physically. Emotionally was another story. As we flew closer to Saigon, we could see the lights and smell the rice cooking from below. We were at an elevation of about 2,400 feet, and the scene and smells were so pleasant. It all seemed so peaceful from this height. Whop whop of the rotor blades only, and pretty flickering lights below, and a cool and energizing breeze blowing through the open doors. No battle down there to fly into. How wonderful, how peaceful. We picked up 3 officers at H3, a designated LZ for helicopters, and then off we flew back to Cu Chi. There was a major and 2 captains. This was the most pleasant flight so far in Vietnam. I hoped we would have more night missions like this. We landed at Cu Chi and refueled as we were told we would be flying the officers around all day. We started to fly before daylight to our first stop on the map. It was quite far. It might even have been in Cambodia, even though we were not supposed to fly in there. The officers had special forces insignias on their fatigues. We landed just as the sun came up in front of a fairly small compound with barbed wire and sandbags all around it, with a gate. And above the gate, painted in white, was a skull and crossbones like one sees on pirate flags. The officers jumped out and went into the compound. We were told to wait, and we shut the helicopter down to save fuel. A break. Nice as long as mortars don't start dropping on us, or someone jumping out of the surroundings and shooting an RPG at the helicopter. We stayed near the helicopter but got out fully armed with our M16s and ammo clip belts, and were standing next to the helicopter. We noticed heads on top of bamboo poles around the perimeter. I thought they were fake at first, but realized that these were real human heads with the eyes pecked out by the birds. The skin was dark and sort of like leather, and the hair was still on the head. I thought at first, what kind of human animal would do this? But it did look pretty scary, like, don't mess with us or your head will be up here on a pole too. The crew talked about the heads as we gazed upon them. We agreed that what's the difference if your head is gone? The fact that one is dead is the important matter. Then the AC, who was a pretty smart fellow and was in Vietnam for his second tour, said that the Vietnamese, which were mostly Buddhists, believed unless the whole body was buried together, they could not rest in the afterlife or some such thing. So, this was a double curse to whomever gets killed by these guys in the compound or out of it on patrol. If believed, that could stop a possible attack, we supposed. Superstitions are strong. There was also another explanation that we heard about later. I don't know if it is true, but some Cambodian mercenaries working with the American Special Forces refused to fight unless they could decapitate whomever they killed and take the head back to where they lived to put on a pole as a trophy of their exploits. They carried bags with them on patrol for this purpose. So, there were possibly many reasons for decapitating enemies and putting their heads on bamboo poles for all to see. Definitely it looked barbaric and scary when looked upon. It was like looking at something that occurred many centuries ago during the Roman legion times. The officers reappeared from the compound. We all got aboard the helicopter, started it up, and took off. The AC looked at their map of where they wanted to go, and off we went to another Special Forces camp. We landed in the middle of the next compound. We immediately were surrounded by little kids. They were all smiling, saying hi, and asking for candy or gum. What a nice difference from the headhunters' camp. We shut down the helicopter as the officers were having their conference with whoever was in charge of this camp. There were some stucco buildings within the compound that reminded me of some movies of the French Foreign Legion in the Middle East. We were informed that these buildings were indeed built by the French, who lost their war in Vietnam in the surrender of Dien Bien Phu in 1954. The kids were fun, and we gave them all the chocolate and gum we had, plus most of our sea rations. Kids are always kids. They seemed like very happy kids. They make you laugh, and we all needed to laugh. There is too much seriousness in war.